It is time for Mac Geek Gab, and listener Paul brings us our quick tip of the week. He tells us, he says, I used to just power down everything with my Apple TV when it was acting funny and the remote wouldn't pair. But recently that stopped working, and I learned that I can restart my Apple TV or Siri remote, which I didn't know before. And you do it by pressing the TV button and the volume down button for 5 seconds, and then the remote will restart, and that resyncs everything for Paul. I didn't even know this was possible, and that alone is a quick tip. And then we actually know how to do it. TV button and the down button, volume down button for 5 seconds. More tips like this, plus your questions answered today on Mac Geek Gab 958 for Monday, December 5th, 2022. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where we take your tips, your questions, your cool stuff found, the things you send in to us at feedback@macgeekgab.com. We string them together into an agenda loosely so that as we go through it, we are all but guaranteed that everyone here, me, Pete, John, you at home or in your car, wherever you happen to be, it doesn't matter where you are. Wherever we are, each of us, we each learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include MasterClass. We're at masterclass.com/MGG. You can get unlimited access to MasterClass. And then, of course, Zocdoc. We're at Zocdoc.com/MGG. You can find and instantly book an appointment with patient-reviewed doctors. It's amazing. We'll talk more in depth about each of those shortly here. For now, still here in Durham, New Hampshire, as always, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, on a different computer because my keyboard died, this is John F. Braun.
Requiem for a keyboard. Good morning, gents. Pilot Pete here in Lee, New Hampshire. Fun to be with you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's good when the three of us are here. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Hey,
Came in the room, banged on the keyboard, and nothing.
I'll do it every time, John.
It's a Logitech solar keyboard that uses this proprietary little connector. But yeah, just rolled over. So
I wonder if it's the batteries in the keyboard.
Well, it has solar panels on it. So actually I put it, I mean, the thing is, it's never, anytime I check the levels on it, they have, a little widget. It says 100% because, sunlight does kind of come into this room.
Sure.
Well, I put it in direct sunlight downstairs. So maybe the battery's dead. I don't know.
Well, I also, because I have, I guess I don't use a Logitech keyboard anymore, but I did for 15 or more years. And I found that occasionally, not often, but it happened through the tenure with a couple of different Logitech keyboards that were similar to yours that use the dongle. It's its own wireless technology. So it's not Bluetooth. It's certainly not Wi-Fi. But I don't think it's not RF, but it's whatever. It's whatever it is. That those would get out of sync and I would have to repair them occasionally. There's a button on the dongle, a button on the keyboard. But when I pressed the button on the keyboard, I would see lights flash on the keyboard that would tell me that the batteries were good. Because I never had the solar one. I always had the one that I had to replace the batteries. So oftentimes they became unpaired when the batteries were out for too long and it forgot. I don't know, whatever it was. So maybe there's hope is what I'm saying, John.
Yeah, it could be the batteries are low. So we'll find out after the show. If not, I'll go to Staples and I'm sure they have a Mac keyboard there. Yeah.
I downstairs, I am using the Matias, one of the mechanical keyboards. I'll pull it up here because it's what's it called? It's the Tactile Pro keyboard for the Mac. I couldn't possibly use that for podcasting because
Too clicky.
Way too clicky. So yes, please bear that in mind, John, when you're buying a new keyboard, that that you need something that is silent. Here in the studio, I use one of Apple's keyboards. I guess the Mac Mini, which is what you have, doesn't come with a keyboard. The box is too small. So, but I know plenty of podcasters that actually have two keyboards at their computer. One that, one like the Apple one or just something silent that they use when they're doing shows, and then the other one that they use because they like how it feels. So, so maybe it's time to buy two keyboards, John. Mm-hmm. And there you go. So fun stuff. Hopefully it's an easy solution for you. Yeah, man. Yeah. And hopefully that's all it is. Did you check that like your USB hub or whatever you have that plugged into is functioning, that like that it is the keyboard and like you're getting lights on the little transmitter thing or whatever?
No.
All right. Well,
my mouse,
I'm just thinking
my trackball works. So
okay.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll. No, there's a button on the keyboard that will show a smiley face or a frowny face when you press it.
Yep.
And it shows nothing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So there's definitely something going on with the keyboard. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm eager to hear both how it works out and what you wind up getting. So, all right. We promised last week that we would make sure we got through most of the backlog of cool stuff found that we have here. And while the Matias Tactile Pro keyboard was not on that list, it certainly is cool stuff found. So I'm happy that we started there. Ben brings us the next piece of cool stuff found. It says in episode 954, Pete mentioned how Google Photos was filling up his Google storage space, and Dave commented about having experienced the same. If y'all would prefer Google didn't have access to your photos, or you just don't want them taking up space there's a way to easily delete them all, which Google on their own makes extremely difficult, as I think you and I have both found since episode 954.
We have.
Yeah, Ben found a script a couple of years ago, and he says he's helped a handful of his clients accomplish this mass deletion. The underlying issue occurs generally after one installs Google Photos on your iPhone or iPad and lets it upload. That makes sense. He says the script works great and is thoroughly described by its author, Brajeshwar Oinam. And I know I mispronounced that, and I apologize for that. But you can go and take a look at this script and the description of it at his website. So you can get through it all. I have not done this yet. I want a full disclosure. I fully plan.
I haven't.
You have and you haven't.
I haven't. How's that for dichotomy?
Super
I did
helpful.
everything except press enter on the last step. So the reason I wanted to say that is the link that's in the show notes will take you to his site, and it is meticulously and perfectly described. Each step, read exactly what it says and do what it says, and it will come up exactly right. There's none of this, then you click this and you're like, where the heck is that? I never saw it. It's all there. It's really well documented. So I did not push enter to get rid of all of them because I wanted to make sure I have a backup of my photos library.
Sure.
Before I completely, get rid of every photo of my life for the last 25 years.
Yeah. Oh, yes. This is why I haven't run it yet. Well, that's one of the reasons I haven't run it yet. But
I did want to say the documentation, or I should say the instructions, are very meticulous, very clear, great, and it will work. There's no, awesome. Well, I assume it will work when you hit enter at the end.
Yeah, of course.
Everything else was good, so I'm assuming that's good.
Cool. The next CSF comes from, listener Matt, but also software developer Matt. Matt is from Tuna Belly Software, and we talked about his TG Pro, which is the fan monitor and control app, recently. After listening to the show, Matt realized there's something else he makes for free that we might really like, and it is Endurance. which is a CPU stress test app. If you've ever wanted to test how long your battery would last at full tilt, or maybe what it takes to kick your fans in and where that happens and how that works, you can do this in a controlled setting with this Endurance app, which will just crank up your CPUs. And he offers it for free. It's available in the Mac App Store. So thanks for sharing that with us, Matt. I can see that coming in handy, John, as we try to test some things. And I know there's been times over the years where you and I have been like, yeah, well, this happens when my computer speeds up, but I can't always replicate it. Now we can. So. Good, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. You want to take us to Scott, Mr. Braun? You and the leaf blower behind you?
Yeah. Yeah, today's leaf blowing day.
Nice.
I got to rake mine too. In episode 957, you mentioned quitting Safari when it's been idle for X hours using Marco Arment's Quitter app. I'm sure that does an admirable job if that's what you need. For keyboard Maestro users, and I know Dave is a fan, I have a time macro set up that quits all apps except those that I've added to the exception list every night at a specific time. This gives me the same clean desktop every morning when I return to my computer, while allowing Mail, the one app on my exception list, to keep running so that SpamSieve, another great app, and QuickTip can continue filtering my mail throughout the night. I like to focus on as few apps as possible and thus become more expert in them, and adding Quitter seems superfluous to me thanks to Keyboard Maestro. You can actually program Keyboard Maestro to trigger a macro if the Mac has been idle for X minutes, although it doesn't get to the granular level of applications being idle, which might solve some users' needs too. Quitter is probably useful for a lot of people, but I'd like to do more with less. So in this case, Keyboard Maestro does the job.
Okay. So this is interesting to me because and look, there are many features, probably most, if I'm thinking about it, features of Keyboard Maestro that I don't. Not only do I not use, I don't even know they're there. However, there's one specific thing that I didn't hear in that description. It might well be there in Keyboard Maestro. But what Quitter does is it monitors when I last used a specific app. So while his script in Keyboard Maestro sort of in a very less granular way accomplishes this goal of having quit the apps overnight. That's great. What I like about Quitter is it doesn't just monitor when my Mac has been asleep. It monitors when I have not used a specific app. So I could be doing all kinds of things on my Mac, very engaged. But if there's an app that I haven't used and I've told Quitter to quit that app after 30 minutes where I haven't touched that app, it will. And that's where I really like the Quitter. Now, again, Keyboard Maestro might do this and I just don't know. So I just wanted to offer that distinction, because if Keyboard Maestro does it, then I'm kind of with Scott that running one less thing, well, that's always better. So
there's a way to find out.
I know, but now during the show, like right now.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. At the risk of free advertising, MacSparky.com/field guides. He does a Keyboard Maestro field guide, which his field guides are good for what it's worth.
I agree.
Mac Power users, folks. So MacSparky.com/field guides. He does a Keyboard Maestro field guide, and if that doesn't learn you how to use Keyboard Maestro, you're unteachable.
And I might be. I try not to be unteachable, but it's possible.
I know I am some days. That's
all right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I agree with you. And there's no concerns with free advertising here. I mean, literally everything we just mentioned is effectively free advertising. Like we mention things because they're good and we use them, or you use them, and you've convinced us that we should share them with the world.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are good that I've never heard of before, in our chat at live.macgeekgab.com, Hog Molly mentions, in reference to the Endurance app that Matt sent in, Hog Molly mentions that the terminal command yes, Y-E-S, will also max out a single core of the processor. So theoretically, you could go run 8 of them in 8 separate terminal windows. I didn't choose to run Yes on my computer here because, you know, I'm doing a show and I don't, might not be a good idea. You type yes and then you can just hit enter, or you can say yes and then put in, and it is very clear that you can put in a word after yes, but it must be an expletive. So bear that in mind. But then the description says the yes utility outputs the expletive, or by default, the letter Y, forever. And I guess it does it as fast as it possibly can, which means it's taking up its own CPU core to do so. So interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Hog Molly. Yeah. I never knew about the yes command. Yeah.
How do you stop it?
Control. I would say no. Yeah, Control C. That's the quick tip, right? Control C would stop a terminal command from running usually. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That's not.
Is there a no command?
The Control C to stop a terminal command is not obvious unless you know it, and then it becomes the epitome of the quick tip, which is the thing that we do. One or many of us will do all the time, but if you don't know it, then it seems like magic to the people that catch you doing it. So yeah. All right. But we aren't in quick tips yet because we still have lots of cool stuff found to go through, including one from Abhimanyu, who says, recently in one of your shows, you were discussing writing to NFC tags from an iPhone. And he recommends an app called Placiibo with 2 I's, Placiibo. Of course, all of these things are linked from the show notes at macgeekgab.com. But Placiibo would be his cool stuff found suggestion. But John, you said you tried messing with this and had a little issue with it, yeah?
When it started up, it was asking for like an encryption key or something like that. It was just like,
Huh. Yeah. It does say all NFC tags are automatically encrypted with user-provided encryption key. Huh.
Yeah. So that kind of threw me.
Yeah. All right. Well,
yeah, I got one. It's just called NFC. I'm looking at my phone here.
Okay.
And that one just lets you read and write from the start. So
got it. Yeah. All right. Well, we will link both of those from the show notes as well. Sweet. Thanks, Abhimanyu. I appreciate it. It's always good to have these conversations. John, you want to take us to Eliot?
Yes. Hold on.
John's working with a much smaller screen than usual this week, so bouncing between things.
Yeah. Well, he's looking at that. Let me ask that. So NFC is probably best used with like shortcuts and that sort of thing, right? Is that the most common use for them?
Yeah.
To get things to trigger.
Yes, that's one way I've used them. How about you, John?
The program that I mentioned, and we'll see if that can be found. I can't see right now. It actually has templates for a lot of different things, like a URL, a business card, stuff like that. You can also use it to trigger things, I guess.
Yeah, well. It basically, right. It feeds a thing to your phone. So a URL is a good, I like that use case. Yeah. For shortcuts, Pete, you're not, you program the NFC, but not with the shortcut. More it's that you program the shortcut to trigger when it encounters that NFC tag. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just something I haven't fiddled with, and I know I can get some NFC tags on Amazon and then write them. And yeah, it's just I haven't fiddled with it yet. I know it's something I could have some real fun with if I.
Yeah,
man. So this program has the following templates: business card, web link, Wi-Fi, shortcut, location, text, telephone number, SMS, and email. So,
all right, cool. Nice. Yeah, Pete, I bought a bag of NFC tags from Amazon a number of years ago. And I've used many of them, and I still have a bag of NFC tags that I bought from Amazon years ago. So
are they still multiplying in there, Dave?
I think so. They're like rabbits. They're technological rabbits. I think that's what they are.
There's a show title.
I think, I thought it might be Requiem for a keyboard, but I don't know. Technological rabbits. Those are not two words I ever expected to say together. But I think they are. NFC tags are technological rabbits. So I'm happy to share some with you if you don't mind your home being a breeding ground for these things.
Now, John was supposed to be looking something up, and I brought us down a rabbit hole and found technological rabbits.
Technological rabbits down the rabbit hole. I mean, how much more perfect is that? Yeah. I have this vision of an episode image that is like a steampunk rabbit. So, I don't know. There was a book. I don't know. Oh, man, I'm sorry about this. There was a book years ago, like decades ago, when I was a wee lad, and I can't remember the name of it at the moment. I know I've researched it since then, but the book was like a coffee table book, and it just had different pictures of rabbits. But the entirety of the book was a treasure map to a rabbit, like a gem encrusted rabbit that was worth some, ridiculous amount of money. It came with a prize or something. And there was one of them. And they sold countless copies of these books to people in I'm going to say the 70s, maybe the early 80s, but probably not. It's more like the 70s. And it was hidden somewhere around the world. But if you deciphered all the clues in this book, you would then be able to find the rabbit. And eventually, I think somebody did. I have no idea what the book title was. It was like one word. I want to say enchantment, but it's not. It's not. But I'm sure I could look it up in the great big book of everything. Somebody in Discord might remember. Yeah. But in the meantime, John, maybe you can dig us out of this rabbit hole, at least with Eliot's guide. Anyway. John, save me.
All right. Eliot says Mac Menubar at macmenubar.com is a curated directory of more than 700 Mac Menubar apps, browsable by categories such as audio, battery, weather, clipboard managers, cleaning apps, note-taking apps, window management, etc. You can also quickly check the latest editions, which I did for you. In my humble opinion, nerds should start by checking the system tools category. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, and I looked at the latest one, and so here's a few that I found. Vitals. And what Vitals does is it shows you a little window with all your running processes, but it shows a historical ticker of how much CPU each one uses. So that's kind of neat.
Whoa, that's amazing. Being able to see which apps use. Oh, man. Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I'm in. There it is,
super
Pete.
Thanks. Monitor.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Did you find any other good ones? This is awesome.
Here's one called Radar. I liked it. And what that will do is show you various statistics. And they have templates. So, for example, I just set it up with two of the ones that they show. So one shows my Twitter follower count, and the other shows the Apple stock price. But you can put other numbers up there, and I think you can also set alerts. So if certain things happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. And then the last one is called App Police. And what App Police does is it also shows you what processes are running, but it lets you throttle select processes. So
kind of like App Tamer, right? Similar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And these are all free. So.
Oh, no kidding? Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's really cool. Wow.
Like
nice
widgets
man.
on steroids.
Yeah. I mean, you'll fill up your menu bar and then some. Then you're like, if ever there was a quick tip to help sell Bartender for the Mac, this is it, right? Because Bartender, if you're not using Bartender on your Mac, I highly recommend checking it out, because what Bartender does is it lets you control how many things and which of those how many things are appearing in your Mac's menu bar at any point in time. And you can have multiple menu bars too.
Bars,
so
yeah.
Yeah. Do you? I don't use the multiple bars thing. I have, my main bar and then my everything bar. Do you use the multiple bars thing, Pete?
I'm probably about to with this new cool stuff now.
Yeah, fair.
I haven't as yet, but I can almost assure you I will be. And then and I will mention, gee, Dave, where could you find bartender? Setup, maybe?
Oh, that's right. Bartender is in setup. I was going to say macbartender.com. So if you don't have setup, go to macbartender.com. But yeah, it's you're right. It's also in setup. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those guys, man, they cracked the code. Just saying.
I think so. Yeah, they certainly have convinced. Talk about free advertising, right? They've certainly figured out how to get us to talk about their product all the time. And
the prices, I'm not a fan. I like to buy a program instead of a subscription thing. I don't like the subscription model because I don't want you in my wallet all the time.
Yeah,
it should be my choice. But that's one of the subscriptions I'm happy to pay the price for. It's a bargain. Yeah, fair.
Yeah. The next cool stuff found comes from my friend and co-host of Business Brain, Shannon Jean, who told and taught me about a website called Bearly, BEARLY.ai. And what this does is it summarizes. It's an engine that you point a website at it. It works in Chrome. It's a Chrome extension. And you point it at a website or a block of text or something, and then it will summarize that and rewrite it for you in different ways. Yeah, it's a very cool thing and worth playing with. They've got a little video on the website to walk you through some of the demo use cases, but it's just worth going and playing with. So, so I leave you to that and enjoy. But it's free. Hey, so. We try to balance the cool stuff found most of the time with stuff that's free and then the other stuff. So good. Yeah. Moving on up. Yeah. All right.
Kids writing your papers, help
right.
reword.
Yeah. Let a computer write your papers for you. It's the future, kids. I know that in schools right now, when you have an AI write your stuff for you, and they find out, you probably would fail. And we all, I think, would agree that is the correct way to do things. Would either of you disagree?
No, it needs to be your work.
Okay.
It seems to me that Bearly helps you more clearly express your idea. I could be wrong.
No, your opinion is your opinion. It's not wrong or right. It's just, it is. And it doesn't surprise me that all three of us sort of are in the same mindset on this. But I will share an anecdotal story from my own history. In high school, in 10th grade, I think it was 10th grade, when we had to write our first term papers, I had an Apple IIc at home. I was very happy to have this Apple IIc at home. And the process, this was to learn how to write a paper. So there was a process to it. And the rough draft was probably more important than the final product, right? Because we had to write a rough draft, and then we would go through an editing process, both individually with the teacher and then also with our groups in the class. And then we would, present a finalized product, and the grade was sort of on the whole project. Great. No problem. Fine. So I went home and I wrote my term paper. And of course I wrote it on my Apple IIc because I had it and I knew how to type. And and it was relatively new for us. This was really our first computer. We had a Timex Sinclair before that, but in terms of, I don't know, Sinclair had its utility. But so I did it, and I printed out my work and I brought it in, and the teacher was like, "I can't accept this," and I said, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, this isn't a rough draft. You've printed this," and I'm like, "Well, just you wait. Go ahead and read it." I'm pretty sure you're going to disagree with yourself after.
Sure it's rough.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I don't think I'm that good, And she's like, "Well, yeah, but you didn't hand write it. The final product has to be typed, but the rough draft, everybody else hand wrote it." And I'm like, "It's fine. It doesn't bother me. Whatever they chose to do." I'm like, "I did this," and she's like, "Well, you did this on a computer, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, this is like cheating because everybody else in the class wrote it out by hand and then is going to have to, after we do the edits, is going to then have to go and type the whole thing, essentially writing it a second time on a different medium. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's on them. Like, yeah, all I have to do is go in and do the edits and then reprint, like, obviously. Yeah. And that is what every single person that's listening to this show would do today. But back then, what's that?
It was the future then.
It was, no, she failed me for the project. And I went straight to my guidance counselor. And I was like this, and I even told her, I'm like, this is the future. And it's not like some 100-year future. I'm like, within 5 years, this is how this class is going to be taught. And the opposite will be the exception rather than the rule. And my guidance counselor looked at the teacher and she's like, he's 100% right. You did not put in the requirements that people had to hand write their rough draft. This is not a penmanship class.
Yeah.
This is an English class, and he is getting full benefit, arguably more than full benefit of this, because he's able to focus on the English part of it and not the pedantic handwriting and rewriting of this thing over and over again. And the teacher was pissed. But so
you had 2.5 more years with her.
yeah, exactly. Right. But I share this anecdote because right now we all think that using an AI to write our papers is cheating. And someone thought that using a computer to write my paper was cheating and literally failed me until she was forced not to. So who knows what the future holds? I certainly don't. Yeah. I did then, though. I was darn certain what the future held in that moment, and I was right. But it was already there. It wasn't the future. It was the present. We just needed everybody to catch up. So anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah. It does sound like I had a bad teacher, Brian Monroe, who said that in the live.Matt-Geek Gab. Yeah, she wasn't a bad teacher. She was a teacher who had been doing this for decades, had been set in her ways, had lost most of her neuroplasticity to adapt to new technology and new things. She was change resistant, folks. And I was happy to help her with that. Yeah. Look at my gift to her.
Time is a teacher to retire, because when you become a teacher, you want to do it because you want to help kids to learn and to explore new ways of expanding their horizons and learning how to think. And so when the teacher gets to no, you're going to do it this way, and that's the only way to do it.
Right.
Here's what to think, not how to think. It's time to be done.
It's time to be done. I mean, I think, yes, I think that's true in a lot of professions. Like if you find yourself unwilling to learn a new thing, and after you learn it, then deciding whether it's good or bad, that's totally relevant. And the, years, decades of experience that you bring to that decision is hugely valuable. But you need to be informed to make a decision, right? Making a decision of I am resisting change. That's very different than, look, I've done it this way. I've done it this other way, and I've tried this new thing. And now, no, I think we learn better by doing, by proceeding this way. That, there's value to that, I think.
Yeah. There's a guy on one of my shows recently said, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's actually pretty profound that, once you're an expert in your field, now it's time to be quiet and listen to other people around you. And you're actually going to learn other things, even though you know it all. You don't really.
I'm typing this into the show notes only because I don't want to lose that phrase. That is, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. I like it. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. There's I am not a practicing Buddhist, nor do you play one on TV? No, I don't. But I do really like this concept in Zen of beginner's mind, and always starting everything with that childlike wonder of what there's so little that I know. What can I learn from this? And how do I approach it as a beginner? It's very difficult to do because our brains are engineered or are built, I don't know, whatever, our brains work such that we are always seeking shortcuts, and we need that. We have to find shortcuts. We have to be able to ignore lots of things in order to get through the day, right? And so we have to be efficient about stuff, and our brains are extremely good at that. And so to maintain beginner's mind is not easy. Like that is an intentional thing. Once you're, beyond the age of about 8, I think, like up until then, it's super easy. So anyway, thank you for coming to our TED Talk now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Julian saves us from this. Man, that was going to be a quick, cool stuff found too. With the app CopyPaste, which of course is a clipboard manager, or maybe you don't know that, but it adds a functionality that they are calling TriggerClip. And TriggerClip is a shortcuts manager, kind of like a text expander or Apple's keyboard shortcuts thing. So a snippets manager is now added inside CopyPaste. So if you are using CopyPaste as your clipboard manager, and if you're not using a clipboard manager, please reference the discussion we just had about learning and learning something before you dismiss it, because I think everyone that I've introduced to a clipboard manager has adopted it immediately. It is life-changing. But if you're using CopyPaste as your clipboard manager, then make sure to check out TriggerClip. If you don't yet have a clipboard manager, maybe check out CopyPaste, because maybe you can consolidate some functionality there. I consolidate my functionality into Keyboard Maestro. That's my clipboard manager. But if you don't have one, please take that as your quick tip for the day, your most important one. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Moving on still.
Yeah.
Okay. Listener Mark shares with us a fantastic YouTube channel called SpaceRex for Synology stuff. This guy does so much about Synologies. It's kind of like Marius hosting, right? Like the two of them together are putting out so much Synology content, teaching us so much about the nuances of using our various Synology devices, that it's a good place. I am now subscribed to SpaceRex, but I certainly had stumbled into SpaceRex many times searching for how do I do this with my Synology, and there was SpaceRex
I'm eager to look at. And
say that again, Pete.
I'm eager to look at that.
Yeah,
because I'm always struggling to learn new stuff with Synology.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
You mentioned Marius hosting, and I'm going to circle back on that because it was a few shows back we talked about it, and you talked about he has an IP deny list for people trying to maliciously attack your Synology disk station.
Yeah.
I bought it. It's a donation type thing, but I bought it, and I had developed 1,000 over 40 years by people. Remember, we talked about shutting down. If people try to log in too many times, it automatically denies them, and I do it forever.
Yep.
So over 4 years, I got about 1,000 IP addresses permanently banned from trying to log into my disk station. And I went to Marius and got his list, and now I'm over 80,000 IP addresses not allowed to log into my disk station. So
did I tell you I had a conversation with Marius about that? Well, about a lot of things, but that list came up, and the way he develops it is he subscribes to a separate internet service provider connection, has a separate disk station that sits on that connection with nothing else. Right? And it's a honeypot. Yeah, it's wide open, and there's no way that it is completely air gapped from the rest of his network. Meaning it's not plugged in. He has to log into that separately, but there's no way it can get to anything else. And he just invites the world in, and anybody that shows up there shows up on his list because, because there's no one legitimate that would ever try to access that device. So it really is a fantastic resource that he does. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Speaking of Synology, I have something that's not Synology to talk about. I mentioned, we've talked here on the show about how Synology's product roadmap does not have devices with hardware transcoding engines in them. Most of the time that's a GPU baked into the CPU is the sort of how the most inexpensive way to do that. There are other ways to do it, I've learned. One of you taught me that it doesn't have to be a GPU. There are other things that are truly just hardware transcoding engines that can be built into CPUs. But regardless of all of that, Synology's roadmap does not have hardware transcoding as part of it. In fact, the last time they released a disk station that had the ability to do it was in 2020 with their 1520 Plus, the 920 Plus. I think there were others, but those are certainly the two popular ones. And it makes a huge difference having that hardware transcoding engine if you're running like a Plex server or a media server, really, a video media server. It doesn't so much matter with audio. And so I've been looking at other NAS options for media serving, and I got a QNAP TVS H474. I'll link to all of this, and started playing with that as a Plex server. I linked it to my same Plex library. Most of you who are sharing my Plex library with me have been moved over to using that instead of the Synology. But my initial tests, it was interesting. So I compared it to my 1520 Plus, which has the Celeron J4 125 CPU. It's got 4 threads with 4 cores, and the Intel UHD Graphics 600. The QNAP, the H474, has a Pentium Gold G7400. The most important part is that it has Intel UHD Graphics 710. So we're going from Intel UHD Graphics 600 to Intel UHD Graphics 710. So it's a slight bump up, right? I downloaded to my iPad 2 movies, the same movie twice from my QNAP in the time that it took to download one from the Synology, because it's transcoding from the full 4K down to 720p as I'm downloading it to my iPad, because that's what I do for travel. So it's twice as fast. So that's great. But the Synology does it because it's got that transcoding engine. It can on the fly transcode a 4K movie down to 720 just fine. Sort of. After I set it up, I did this test. I'm like, okay, this is great. There is a future here. Now, I will say, I don't like the QNAP operating system nearly as much as I like the Synology operating system. There's a lot of things missing. They don't have an analog for Synology Office. So that whole Google Office thing where you can, with Google, you can go to Google Docs and Google Sheets and collaborate. Synology Office lets you do that, but you manage the server. So it's not stored on Google, it's stored on yours, but it's the same same kind of web interface. We use it here for our scheduling spreadsheet. It works great. There is nothing like that on QNAP. So and there are a few other things, but that, to me, that's the big one that's missing from QNAP. But QNAP is very focused on this stuff. In fact, the QNAP has a PCIe slot in it so that you can, sorry, I was distracted by I thought the police were coming to get me. Thank you for muting, John. The QNAP has a PCIe slot in it so that you can put in your own GPU and transcode even faster, right? So it really is built for this as one of its flagship purposes. And the product manager there uses his QNAP as a Plex server or a media server of some kind. So it doesn't surprise me that they see the reason for this. But where it got interesting was my daughter's living in Italy and was watching something from our Plex server over there. And she's like, I hate to bother you with this because it's not urgent. And I know this is a busy time of year for you. I'm like, yeah, what's up? Go. I'm like, you kind of get priority, kiddo. And she said, every time we start to watch a thing, like half the time, it just like buffers a lot. It starts and stops, but we're pretty sure it's not our connection because we can watch Netflix, no problem. And I'm like, all right, well, good news. I have an easy way to test this. And I moved her and her boyfriend from watching on that, the Synology Plex Media Library to the QNAP Plex Media Library. Same thing. And she's like, all right, let me test it. 20 minutes later, I get a text. She's like, 100% fine. So there's something about how the QNAP is optimized for Plex and transcoding that seems, at least from what I can tell in my anecdotally limited tests, to be even more efficient for this kind of thing. Now, who knows? Maybe there's something else going on with my Synology that's like blocking network access, but I don't think so. So yeah, it was fascinating to see that, the QNAP.
So how much did that just cost me, Dave?
Well, I don't know, Pete. You can get the H474, which is what I have, is like $1,300. But I've looked out. I've prepared for this question, Pete. The QNAP TS453D has that same Celeron J4125 and is $500. So I think like, and it's a currently sold model. It's not like you're getting like for the Synology, the DS1520 Plus, you've got to dig into the archives and find somebody that has it in extra stock or whatever, because it's not sold anymore. It's not current. This is a current thing. So I've got both of them already are linked in the show notes for you all. So. Good? Yeah?
Nice. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, no, it's been an interesting experiment, and I will keep you all posted on it. But yeah, good stuff. Hey, Battleship is a fun board game that a lot of us played as kids, and sometimes we even play it as adults. Also, as adults, we sometimes have to play Calendar Battleship, which is that frustrating game we play with our doctors, trying to find out when we're both free for an appointment, in 3 months. No. With our sponsor, Zocdoc, booking an appointment with a doctor that suits your needs, fits your schedule, is in your network, and is in your neighborhood is easy. Zocdoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. On Zocdoc, you can find every specialist under the sun. So whether you're trying to straighten your teeth, fix your achy back, get your mole checked out, or anything else, Zocdoc's got you covered. Zocdoc's mobile app is as easy as ordering a ride to a restaurant or getting delivery to your house. You search, find, and book doctors with a few taps. And when you're doing that finding, the searching, you're finding local doctors who have been reviewed. That's right. You get to read verified patient reviews from real people who made real appointments with real doctors. It's almost like they've figured out how we want this to work. Because this way, when we walk into our doctor's office, we're all set to see somebody in our network who gets us. Every month, millions of people use Zocdoc, and I'm one of them. I've used it whenever I need to look for doctors because I like to see those reviews. It makes a difference. Look, join me. Go to Zocdoc.com/MGG and download the Zocdoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/MGG, Zocdoc.com/MGG. And our thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring this episode. Next up is our sponsor, MasterClass. With MasterClass, you can learn from the world's best artists, icons, and leaders anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. For example, you can learn songwriting from John Legend. You can learn, I did this one, how to think like an FBI profiler with John Douglas. This is fascinating stuff. The power of personal branding with Kris Jenner. Bob Iger teaches business strategy. Gordon Ramsay teaches cooking. Each class is broken out into individual video lessons, usually around 10 minutes long. This way, as a member, you can explore at your own pace, and each class is supported by downloadable materials, class guides, recipes, whatever fits in. MasterClass is available on your phone, on the web, on your smart TV, and available via audio mode to listen to classes on the go. MasterClass has over 2,500 video lessons from 180 plus of today's most brilliant minds, and are available anytime, anywhere on iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. I highly recommend you check it out. This holiday, give the perfect gift of an annual MasterClass membership and get one free. Go to masterclass.com/MGG today. That's masterclass.com/MGG. Terms apply, and our thanks to MasterClass for sponsoring this episode. All right, John, let's do some questions, shall we? Bruce has Well, this might be a geek challenge, but we'll see.
It could be.
Yeah.
I kind of solved it. So anyways, Bruce says, I have a client who would like to be able to be logged into multiple iCloud accounts for messages, but Apple's Messages app only allows for a single account at any given time. Do you know of any other messaging clients out there that will pick up iMessages, or perhaps a different solution altogether?
Ooh.
So yes, you're right. One option could be to try a third-party messaging client.
Have you found one that works with iMessage?
No, I went through a couple on this list. So I found this really nice list over at iMore called Best Messaging Apps for Mac.
Okay.
But I tried a few of them, and I don't think any of them support Apple's messages. But you may want to consider, using a different protocol like Jabber or AOL or something like that.
I would say Signal or Telegram these days, or WhatsApp. Really, and I'll put WhatsApp at the top of my list. WhatsApp would be the first one that I would jump to because it's just so ubiquitous. In most of the world, it's not so much here in the U.S., but everywhere else, that's the platform. Unless you're in China, in which case WeChat is the ubiquitous platform. So.
Yeah. Another thought, though I think it's major overkill, would be to run a macOS virtual machine and have that instance log into the other iCloud account.
I mean, you could just have another user account on your Mac that's logged in to messages on the other account. I mean, you're right. The VM might be, it allows you to really truly see both at the same time as opposed to have the switching accounts. But yeah, all right. Yeah. Okay.
But then I did a bit more digging, and I found something over at GitHub called iMessage Web Client. And they explicitly say in the description of the project, be signed into 2 or more iMessage accounts at once on one iOS or Mac device. So I tried that. I had to update my so you have to pull it from GitHub and then compile it yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried that. I had to update my Xcode. I had to update the command line tools, and then finally it compiled. But then the next step when I tried to activate it, so I had to install like NPM and some other things that I didn't have on my machine. But when I tried to start it, it failed, saying it couldn't find SQLite.
Oh, so that's weird, because SQLite should be there by default on your Mac. So, All right. And what was this called? I just don't see a link for it in our.
No, let me. iMessage Web Client.
Okay. All right. And it's like 10 years old too, right?
Yeah. The source is like 8 years old.
All right. There used to be something called, I'm looking here, AirMessage at airmessage.org, which is iMessage for Android and for the web. I don't know how current it is. I'm literally learning about it right now. But use iMessage on any computer with AirMessage. My concern is, well, I don't know. Visit AirMessages on a Mac computer to download. You can sign in with Google. I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can see this being valuable for sure. Huh. I will. Go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say, and those are all going to be encrypted, right? Because there's that silly commercial out there about, we use carrier pigeons to transmit your mail, and all your text messages are unencrypted. I'm trying to think, maybe on some Android systems or something, but iMessage is always encrypted, right? And
SMS is not encrypted.
Is in the clear.
And that's true on your iPhone or any platform, I believe. Sure. But iMessage is not SMS. iMessage
right,
also,
it's
encrypted. Correct. It is end-to-end encrypted. Yeah. So that was going to be my comment about using some third-party hosted engine to do this, and it seems like AirMessage might be that. I don't know enough about it, but just be aware that you might be giving someone else the ability to decrypt your iMessages on your behalf. So just be aware of that as you're heading down this path. But yeah, it's interesting.
And I would think the only time you're worried about that anyway is if you're transmitting passwords or account numbers and that kind of thing. But, for the most part, want to meet for lunch? Who cares?
I am eager to see the world move away from SMS and move to WhatsApp. And I know what the sort of ripple effect implications are of saying that, because it's not a public thing. It's all
privately owned. Sure,
it's privately owned. Yeah, but WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted. WhatsApp is cross-platform, so it is you can create. It's like iMessage for everyone in a sense. Yeah. Because you get all the benefits of like a modern messaging protocol, unlike SMS, where, if you're trying to send, especially movie files, but even sometimes images, they just get like compressed and depending on the phones that are involved, things get weird with SMS and MMS. And WhatsApp is just it's a modern protocol. So do you find that you use WhatsApp a lot, Pete?
I do. In fact, I was going to state that WhatsApp quickly, back when I first started flying international, Skype was the way that you talked back to home without having to dial in 32 digits on a Sprint card and all that kind of stuff. So you could call home via Skype. Yeah. Once WhatsApp came out, it quickly replaced Skype in the international pilot community to talk to your families, talk to your friends from anywhere in the world to all over the world.
Yeah.
It just worked.
Yeah, right. It just works. Yeah. Oh yeah. Anytime I travel out of the country, like if I have to sync up with an Airbnb owner, in Europe or Mexico or wherever, or I have to, like contacting like restaurants for reservations and certainly taxis and all of those things. It's, just use WhatsApp. They're like, you have WhatsApp, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm good. And it is the way. So if you are someone who has not installed WhatsApp on your phone, I recommend get yourself over that hurdle now. When the stakes are low and you're at home and you're not in a desperate need to communicate with someone, and then that way when that moment happens, you're already set. So that's my advice. So I'm sure somebody has a reason not to use WhatsApp. I can't think of one.
Well, it's is it owned by Facebook or Microsoft? I forget.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Facebook. Right? Yeah. So
that's why.
Right. No, there's those reasons, but political reasons not to use it. Yeah, exactly. And I respect that, but also the rest of the world uses it, so factor that into your decision making. I'm trying to think of where we should go here. Ed asks a question that I will answer very quickly here because it keeps coming up on the show. He says, I'm currently using Fubo as my TV provider, and I use the channel's DVR app to record shows so that I can skip commercials. I also have a lifetime membership of using Plex. The channel's DVR can record from my Fubo stream because it has the ability to connect using TV Anywhere, or TV Everywhere, I guess is what it is. TV Everywhere is this awesome thing, folks. It is the thing that allows you to log in to abc.com using your cable subscription or your Fubo subscription or your YouTube TV subscription and then watch shows there, right? The channel's DVR app leverages that engine, which is, I think, publicly mandated for all of these people to sort of use. And the channel's DVR leverages that to just record content on your behalf. You can have it on your Synology or your QNAP. You put it on your NAS and you're good to go. He continues. He says, I haven't been able to find how to get a TV Everywhere connection to my streams for Plex. Do you know if that's possible? So it is possible. I will put a link in the show notes at macgeekgab.com where people have figured out how to link channels and Plex and use channels as a Plex tuner so that Plex can see TV Everywhere. But there is no direct map from Plex to TV Everywhere. And I've never headed down this path because it's a major undertaking. And it looks like it's one of those things that's never going to be stable. You're always going to have to be playing some version of cat and mouse. However, I just point my Plex server at the channels DVR folder as yet another media library. And so everything that channels records appears in Plex. And then I can watch it in Plex, or anybody, my daughter could watch it in Plex from anywhere in the world. And for people who travel, channels is great because like YouTube TV and Fubo are limited by where your location is when you're watching, whereas channels is limited by the location of the device that's doing the recording. And you can stream via channels too. Like it's got, and it will take advantage of hardware transcoding. But where I'm really going with all of this, folks, is that on Saturday, so the December 10th, we are doing a cord cutting hangout at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to start it in our Discord group. And the reason we're going to start it in our Discord group is because if I post the Zoom link publicly, it becomes a fecal matter show.
A turd tornado.
Yeah, we don't want a turd tornado again. So we are going to limit it to, I mean, it's free to join our Discord, but it's also not just publicly publishing the Zoom link. And that's going to be better for all of us. So come to our Discord channel. We will have the Zoom link in there for you. And then we'll just hang out for about an hour. I don't really have much more than an hour to do this that day. I've got actually a hockey game with my son to go to, but you folks, potentially we can, if it looks like it needs to go longer, we can either schedule another one or we can figure it out. But come with us and these hangouts are many conversations. You can participate as much as you want. In fact, we would love it if you participated because we're all doing our own version of cord cutting. If you have a subscription to Netflix, to me, that brings you into the cord cutting conversation. You may not have actually cut the cord. You may still have a coax connection to your cable company. Technically I've cut the cord, but I'm using Fubo TV, which is sort of ish because it does sort of the same thing in the end. Join us Saturday, September. Please don't join us you can join us in September. It's a long way away.
You'll be late.
You'll be late. Right. Saturday, December 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll hang out for an hour. If you're so inclined, bring an adult beverage if you like. Bring a tasty beverage of any kind. Whatever you want to do. It's a loose hangout. There is no agenda for this. At least I don't have one. But bring your thoughts. Bring your questions. This is what we love about these hangouts. So we'll see you there in September, but also in December. John, you had a problem this week, my friend.
Yeah. So I was going through our email box and I saw that, you were doing some testing for Pete, I guess. And then, so I was on my computer and I was also watching TV in my entertainment center. So, I'd watch what's happening and every now and then would look down to the computer to take care of something. And at one point, I was looking up at the TV and then I looked down at the computer and all my emails were gone. Almost all of them. They were it was showing 5 unread ones. And I'm like, I wonder if that's because you're doing some reconfiguration of our email.
Sure. Fair assumption. Spoiler alert, I was not.
So I'm like, what do I do? The first thing that came to mind was, let me rebuild the mailbox. Maybe that'll fix it. Maybe the index is corrupt. That didn't do it. Then I noticed on the screen, on the top of the mail screen, this little symbol that I've never used before called filter was blue. And I'm like, that's not the way it usually looks. And I clicked on filter and all the emails came back. If you click on filter, the default behavior of it is to show you only unread messages. And that's exactly what it did because it thought that's what I wanted, but I didn't.
Right.
So
garbage in, garbage out, right?
No, that's
you click on it and it did exactly what you told it to do.
Yeah.
Without realizing you told it.
I've gotten caught by that too. I do use the filter thing especially when I'm traveling and, I'm trying to like manage my triage my emails in a way that I can sort of keep things controlled while I'm traveling. And so I have my filters set, I believe. I don't have Mail open and I'm not going to launch it while we're in the middle of a show, just because launching Mail sometimes causes hiccups. But I think I have my filters set to show me unread messages and flagged messages. And do you remember, John, where you can set that? Because I don't have Mail open to look at this right now, but there is a place both on Mac and on iOS where you can set this. Do either of you remember?
I'm looking now under configuration, command.
Yeah, I want to say, I always hunt for it. We'll share it in hopefully maybe somebody in Discord will share it, or we'll share it in the next show. I want to get to a couple of quick tips here. So we'll circle back to that, but it is possible to configure this and we'll get there either this show or certainly the next one. So it gives you a reason to listen next week. Pete, you want to share Ben's quick tip for us here?
I do, yeah. Ben writes to us, you've talked about the ability to see the password of the current Wi-Fi network in iOS 16, but did you know you can also reveal the password of any known network, even when not connected? It was just posted on 9 to 5 Mac, and in Wi-Fi settings, you tap Edit and Authenticate with your Face ID, your thumbprint, or whatever it is you use to authenticate. Then you tap the little I in the circle next to any network for more info, and it'll reveal the password. And also it'll allow you to control settings previously only available while connected to that network. So for instance, I run 3 networks in the house, one in the 2.4 gigahertz range. And so I can go to that even though I'm not connected to it, click that little I, and it comes up, oh, here's the password that you're using for that network. And here's how you can configure it. So I thought that was pretty cool. I remember when they first talked about, hey, you'll now be able to see passwords to the network you're connected to.
Yeah, my
Why haven't we been able to do that for 10 years? Just asking for a friend.
Dude. Yeah. No, my favorite story, one of my favorite stories about this to tell is when I had to figure out the password for a network. I had the iPad that was logged in, but there was no sharing of it. There was none of that stuff. So I had to log my iCloud account into that iPad, turn on iCloud keychain, let it sync, and then I could see it on my Mac.
Ooh, tricky.
Right? But that was I'm like, I know, like this device knows it. This information wants to be free. Yeah, exactly. So I set it free.
Yeah. So thanks, Ben, for that tip. That's great. Being able to look at other networks and find out what you've got for a password there.
Absolutely. John, you want to take us to Mark here? See how many of these quick tips we can get through.
Has an Apple Watch quick tip. You can double click on the stem to quickly switch back and forth between previously used apps. I did not know that. And it does it.
What?
So
yeah.
Try it.
I just did. Sorry, yeah. I interrupted.
It's cool, huh?
Yeah, I don't know why you'd want to do that. Well, no, I could see that. But then my concern is, so how far back does it go as far as previously run apps?
I think it just switches, as I'm seeing it, it switches between the current app and the one before it, and it flip-flops between those two. But to answer your, I think, rhetorical question, John, where I would use it is if let's say I go for a hike in the woods, something I do very often. I often... every time I hike, I will turn on the exercise thing, so that my watch tracks my quote unquote workout, right? And oftentimes, especially if I'm hiking somewhere that I don't know the trails, I'll also be running all trails in the background. But I like to have all trails in the foreground because it shows me the map of the trail on my watch. But exercise on my watch, when it goes to sleep, decides to take priority. So if all I have to do is double click the stem to bring up all trails, man, that's way easier than the disaster that I have gone through heretofore. So this is great. And if you don't use all trails and you do some hiking, man, I can't recommend it highly enough. So, yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Fun stuff.
And I actually found doing that. I found on the Ultra, you've got the action button on the other side of that watch.
Yep.
One of the things you can program it to do, and you can do one thing at a time. And I've decided this is the best for me. Flashlight. Now I don't have to turn the screen on and swipe up and hit the light and change the color. I can just hit that action button. It turns my flashlight on. So the middle of the night, one button, on comes the light, so I don't step on the Legos, as it were.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a painful lesson.
There's no Legos in my house right now, but I'll find one anyway that's probably been there 20 years.
Yeah, or the dog leaves its like chewed up and really like sharp toy in the middle of the floor. Yeah. Yep. That kind of furiation is not something I need in my life. I don't know that that's a word, but the infuriation, I guess, is probably the right word. Yeah.
If I'm going back to sleep anytime soon.
Sure does. While we're on the watch thing, Tony shares a quick tip here. And he says, I can't remember if this was mentioned before, but because shortcuts can now be an Apple Watch complication, you can effectively have many more functions a click and perhaps a scroll away on your watch. Very interesting. I like this. Using your watch to trigger a shortcut. But John, you said you had some trouble with this?
I only have like one shortcut on my watch. And I tried to activate it and nothing happened. So I probably have to write another shortcut first. Got
it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, right. That makes sense. Yeah, so it would need to be one that makes sense to trigger that way. All right. We got time to let's finish with these Apple Watch quick tips, shall we, Pete?
Yeah. So after one of the shows, PC Unix reached to us on the Discord channel, said on the latest MGG, y'all briefly mentioned that watchOS low power mode and described it as digital only, everything else is off. And that's no longer true. The watch latest OS has a low power mode similar to other devices. And I said I'd follow up on it and then forgot to, but it's actually quite easy. Swipe up from the bottom or press and hold the bottom. Either way, you get to the control center. Then I've always just looked at it and said, hey, there, I've got 55% left on my watch. Well, guess what? If you tap that, it comes up with the option to go into the low power mode. And if you do that, it'll save battery life by turning off always on display, limiting the sensors as well as the cellular and Wi-Fi connections of your Apple Watch. Notifications may be delayed and emergency alerts may not arrive. And this will turn off features such as background heart rate measurements, heart rate notifications, blood oxygen measurements, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can turn it on for a given amount of time, or you can turn it on altogether, that sort of thing. So I was unaware that the low power mode was anything but that digital nightstand mode only.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think I put the link in there to the support.apple.com article that talks all about it. In the show notes. So after this show goes live, you'll be able to get it to mgg.fm/958. It'll be right there in the show notes.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. Fun stuff. All right. Well, that gets us through here. I like it. This has been an interesting episode.
Yeah.
Some fun detours.
Let me do that quick.
Okay. Pete's got one quick tip left. Go.
Apple Store, military discount. Google, Apple Store, military. It's going to take you to a link. The link is in the show notes there also. But it's essentially id.me, India-Delta.me, where you're going to have to go and sign up. You'll need your DD-214, or which is your discharge papers, or your ID, or something along those lines to prove you're in the military. And then once you do that, the link in there actually takes you to the Apple Store with the military. Each id.me store affiliation has their own website, and id.me will take you there. And you can go then log on and get your 10% discount. But you won't get it on apple.com if you just go there. You have to specifically tell it, hey, I'm military, take me to that part of the store, and it'll get you there. So 10%, it's nice. Starts talking about real money.
It does, yeah. Go ahead, John.
And another store, so they have a couple of other ones as well. There's an education store. So if you search for Apple Education Store, and similarly, I guess you got to prove that you're a student. I guess they do that if you have a .edu email address. And they also have a thing back when I did the corporate thing. They have something called an employee purchase program. where you can also get a discount.
Cool. Yeah. Good stuff.
Check with your benefits people. And you be part of a purchase program.
Sweet. I thank you for that. Thanks everybody. Pete, I don't say this often because I know it embarrasses you, but I will say it. So thank you for sharing that tip, but also thank you for your service, Pete. You
thank you. Yeah. It was hard at the time, but boy, looking back at it, it's given me a lifetime of opportunity. It's
true. That's true. No, I know you feel like you've gotten more out of it than maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth. But
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So.
I mean, some people obviously do the ultimate sacrifice and put more into it than they
Correct.
get out of it. But I have definitely been the beneficiary more than the donor. I've been the donee rather than the donor.
Yeah, and I know that, and that's why I know why I don't make a big deal out of it all the time. But we did miss it. I did miss it the day that we recorded, which happens to be Veterans Day. So I wanted to come back to that. So thanks, man. Yeah. Thank you all for listening. This has been it's been a fun episode. I hope you got your 5 things and then some out of it. If you did, let us know. You can join our Discord at macgeekgab.com/Discord. You can let us know at feedback@macgeekgab.com. If you didn't, let us know. If you did, let us know. If you have something to share, let us know. We want to hear from you. It's part of what makes the show go round. It is. Feedback at macgeekgab.com.
Whoa. Feedback at macgeekgab.com?
Feedback at macgeekgab.com.
That's it. Make sure you join that cord cutting hangout with us on Saturday the 10th, which is the Saturday right after this episode is released. So please join us. We'll see you there. It's going to be fun. Make sure you check out Pilot Pete's aviation podcast, So There I Was.us. There's some great stuff happening there. Thank the folks at CashFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Check out our sponsors. You can go to macgeekgab.com/sponsors to see all of the active deals. We got to start a Discord channel for deals, not just sponsor deals, but deals that we can all share. I don't think I've started that yet, but I've had this idea like when falling asleep before. We're going to change that. Masterclass.com/MGG, Zocdoc.com/MGG. John, you made it through the episode despite having to cobble together a very capable podcasting setup at the last minute. Do you have any advice for people who might find themselves want to prevent something like that from happening in the future?
My advice is get another keyboard so you don't get caught.
Made up.